Welcome back to your Pig Trail Show. Wilma LeClaire alongside Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops report. Kevin, we got you on the phone today. He's on his way back from Texas for the Grassroots program. Kevin, on your way home, I think we got to talk about a number of things, but we're going to jump in with Darian Ford heading into the portal. What's your take on that?
Yeah, this is a guy that, not that long ago, he played his freshman season at Arkansas, obviously, this year. Top 100 player coming out of high school, 4-star guy, back-to-back Gatorade Arkansas High School Player of the Year. So he came into the program with accolades, but we know in his freshman season there just wasn't a lot of playing time. He wasn't in the rotation. He did recently have a video announcement where he was considering, not considering, but that he was riding a horse back to Fayetteville.
Yeah, these video announcements are starting to get confusing.
Well, that's just the thing with the way college basketball is now. And so what may be true one day, the next day, a week later, in this case, a couple of weeks later, he's in the portal. And I think it signals several things. Arkansas, after adding 5 players, after adding the 5 out of the portal starting early April through the mid part of the month, it's been quiet these last 2 weeks, but you had 5 additions, but you also had 5 players going to the NBA draft. You had Kamani Johnson moving on and exhausting his eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
You had Mikal Mitchell going in the portal. We know Barry Dunning did after having one of those little kind of cryptic "I'm coming back" type tweets he put out, and then he goes in the portal, and now it's Darian Ford. And so, you've moved on. You've got 7 newcomers total, 5 out of the portal, 2 of the high school kids that signed, and now you've got 2 openings because you've effectively had 9 guys, whether it's like I just went through it, either NBA draft, we know who those guys are, and guys that have gotten in the portal, or in Kamani Johnson's case, he's finished. So there's 2 openings as it stands now, but you also, of those 5 in the NBA draft pool, you've got Jordan Walsh and Devo Davis, both having left the door open for a possible return. And so the numbers get tricky. Even though you've got 2 spots open, you're not only still recruiting in portal players. Arkansas got 5 guards, effectively backcourt players, 4 true guards, and a 3-4 combo that's going to be a small ball 4 and play on the wing. So you've got other considerations not only for your front line, but you may also be looking at out of the portal, but you may also be looking at maybe welcoming somebody back who's in that draft. And so with 2 spots open, I think multiple things could be going on at once here. So I wouldn't focus on right now as it stands as there's 2 portal players coming, or there's both players that are in the draft pool are coming back. I think there might be a combination there. And I mentioned it. Arkansas got all those commitments April 3rd through the 17th, 2 weeks. And Here we are about to turn the page to May tomorrow. It's been kind of quiet as far as additions. But when we look at Darian Ford going in, that should be speaking to everyone that some other things are about to happen. We would be remiss not to run through it real quick. I mean, Ron Holland, the 5-star that Arkansas was in the sweepstakes for, Texas commitment, signed with the Longhorns in the early period. We know there was a coaching change with Chris Beard. He's now at Ole Miss. It sounded like initially that Ron Holland was behind the new coach, Rodney Terry, the interim, who was then hired permanently after Texas had a really good run through the Big 12, nice run in the NCAA tournament. But then the decommitment came on Friday, and so that's got a lot of Arkansas fans buzzing. Top 5 national 5-star guy, played well in the recent McDonald's All-American game, played well in Nike Hoop Summit. And he's one of those versatile 3-4s that Eric Mosman loves. I mean, especially with Jordan Walsh in the draft, and if he stays in there, this is another 5-star to come in and who I think is a little bit more polished offensively than Walsh, and both of them really translate as being plus to elite on the defensive side because of that versatility. Now, I'm not trying to suggest Arkansas is going to get a Ron Holland, but I think they're back in the mix right now, Will, because anytime a player that you finish first runner-up for decommits from the school that you lost out to, keep an eye on the G League Ignite. That's another option for him. That was in his Final Four when he made his announcement. So that's also a possibility. I know UCLA was a school he really liked. He visited a couple of times. He visited Arkansas twice. Kentucky was kind of in the mix. And then you always pay attention, is there another school that's maybe on his radar now? So there's all kinds of possibilities. But I do think Arkansas gives itself a chance now to jump back in the mix for Ron Holland. And again, looking at the possibilities from that NBA draft, I felt like all 5 were probably going to stay in. And I'm starting to lean a little bit towards maybe one maybe rethinking that, and maybe the possibility of Arkansas getting somebody back, which would be huge.
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask you which one you think it's going to be?
You are allowed, sir, and I'm really starting to think. Honestly, I think right now, I think Arkansas might be in a good position to get Devo Davis back.
Okay.
Listen, things are fluid.
Yeah, I'm not lighting any fireworks yet.
Well, here's the thing about it. Here's what makes it fluid. You start to get feedback, right? And you have to weigh options.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just the feedback, but I think it could also be maybe the opportunity to come back to Arkansas is not just about the playing opportunity, but maybe the NIL possibilities are sweetened. So without knowing all the specifics, I would say if he had to make a decision today, he's got till May 31st deadline when college eligible players have to withdraw from the draft to maintain that eligibility. So that's another month out. But I think if the decision had to be made today, I think it might favor Arkansas getting Devo Davis back. But you remember, it's fluid. He could get different feedback. All it takes is one team or one situation in his pro options to illuminate something that it's not true today or doesn't exist today, and could change that. I felt for a while that he was probably going to stay in the draft. At this point, I mean, I think it's 55-45. He ends up back at Arkansas, but we'll see.
Yeah. Wow, that's really exciting stuff. I didn't think we were going to do that. All right, let's get into what you've been doing down there in Texas. Grassroots in full effect. You're on your way home now. What'd you see while you were there?
Saw a lot of really good basketball players. And, the Arkansas Hogs, one of the top programs with Adidas 3SSB historically. And, there's no shortage of talent in the state of Arkansas. And it starts with Keonor Boateng, class of 2024, national top 20 guy, a 5-star. Had a huge weekend in the first live eval session last week in Omaha, Nebraska, Council Bluffs, Iowa area, down in College Station this weekend. He didn't disappoint because here's a guy he's got multiple things he can do to not only help himself on the court, but help teammates, because teams have to focus on him. I constantly saw, not only his man, but, help coming. And he's a very good driver. He's adept at getting into the paint. And so you'd see a second or third guy rotate. And so here was a guy that showed me this weekend not only the ability to finish with athleticism and toughness around the basket or draw fouls at the line, but he also did a good job, I thought, of setting teammates up, getting off the ball. So it's not always about him, and he understands. He's reading the situations and playing off that. And he's a guy that can go in there. He had one game where he's got eight rebounds, 15 points, 5 assists, 5 steals, and a block. So he's doing things at both ends that translate. You understand why he's a 5-star, why, aside from his Arkansas offer he's had a while, Missouri, some of the other ones, Memphis, Auburn, some of the bigger schools, Arizona State. In the last week, it's been Indiana and Ohio State and some other high major schools that have jumped in with offers. And that list is going to continue to grow. You see a lot of college coaches courtside, including on Friday in the opener to come see Honor Boateng, Eric Musselman, Gus Argenal, and Anthony Ruda. So 3 members of Arkansas's 4, bench coaching, including the head hog sideline on, courtside to watch Honor Boateng perform. And you had the head coach at UConn, Dan Hurley, stop by and watch for a little bit. Oregon, Stanford, it was a who's who of high major schools surrounding that court and watching this action. Yeah, so Terrion Burgess, class of 2025, we talk a lot about him.
There we go.
6'9" wing out of Benton. He's on this same team playing up with 17U. The problem is he did roll his ankle in the real deal in the rock a few weeks ago, so he has not played in these first 2 live eval sessions. He will be cleared in about a week, and so we're going to see a lot more of him side by side with Keonor Boateng moving forward with the Hogs. But he did not play this weekend or last weekend, but he's there in support of the team. But he's a difference maker as well. Very talented player at 6'9". You think about a 6'9", 3'4". So that's where the game is moving. He's got great court awareness. You talk about a young man that has solid court vision. One of his coaches with the Hogs has really talked about it all weekend long and can't wait to get him back. And he sees the same things I do. Here's a guy that can protect the rim. He's a guy that even in transition can get back and protect that rim and adds length for the Hogs that they don't currently have. He's would be one of their 2 tallest players when he gets back with that versatility. So there's other guys, class of 25, Luke Moore, a guard out of Little Rock Central, that had a big weekend shooting the ball. Deshaun Spence from Bologna, 6'4", small forward wing. Bryson Hammond, 6'6", pushing 6'7", forward out of Jacksonville. But you got multiple players. Daniel Culberson, another guard out of Little Rock Central. So the Hawks are representing. They had a strong weekend weekend before last. The record didn't reflect it this weekend, but they played really well at times. But again, I go back to Boateng and Burgess. Those are two guys that Arkansas had offers out to, and Arkansas coaches again were in College Station on Friday to check out the Hogs and Boateng.
That's really exciting stuff. Kev, we got to talk Pro Hogs. Only one Pro Hogs still in the NBA Finals after Bobby Portis and his Milwaukee Bucks got bounced by the first play-in team. Do you wanna say what's your take on that, or where do you want to go?
Well, I know you're relishing the moment, Will.
I'm not. I am absolutely not.
That's one.
I feel for every Hog fan who was rooting for Bobby, and I was rooting for Bobby as well the entire season.
No, but you're right. This was probably. I mean, the 8 seed has knocked off 1 seeds before, and it's not very often. And we know in this play-in era, Miami lost its first playing game and then had to win. Do or die. The second playing game, came back, won that. So you figure there's a team that's tired on the ropes. They barely survived to get in the playoffs, and then they knocked Milwaukee around 4-1 to the tune of, just blast them out of the playoffs. The 1 seed, the best record in the NBA. Bobby started the series out well. And Giannis was injured, and the Greek Freak gets back, and Bobby's role was diminished beyond. Even much less than his role that he had during the regular season, whether Giannis was healthy or not. I thought that was one of the mistakes that was made. I'm not a coach, but I felt like I felt like that was one of the mistakes in that series. But when you get beat 4-1, you got more than one thing not going right. There's probably 4 or 5 when you basically get demolished like that. And so, Miami takes out Bobby
culture
Portis
was
in
dead.
Milwaukee. Yeah, I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either now.
Jimmy Butler owned that series, and he got help from the supporting cast. But look, Miami was hurt. They had guys that, Tyler Hero got hurt early in that series, broken hand, finger, whatever. He didn't come back. Victor Oladipo got hurt, knee injury, didn't come back. And those were guys in their rotation. And so you tip your hat to a team that just, those last 2 games, it looked like Milwaukee was going to win, and they were just out tough. That you talk about that Heat culture, they just find ways. And that there's an advanced stat that said that Miami was the most clutch. They made the most clutch plays at the end of games throughout the season. They track that stuff, and that's what happened in those final 2 games of the series. Were flipped double-digit deficits into wins, and Milwaukee looked shell-shocked as those games played out the last 3 or 4 minutes each case.
Yeah, absolutely. But we still got Moses Moody that we got to talk about. I'm not going to tell you where we are in the game because we are recording this, but I will say it's a very close game at the moment.
Yeah, it should be the early stages, early first quarter. But yeah, Moses Moody has had after not really having a rotation role through most of the season, here he is getting rotation minutes in the playoffs. And we've got a barn burner, Game 7 in Sacramento. It's all tied up at 3. Winner takes all and moves on to the next round, and we'll see if Moses Moody can keep the Pro Hogs in the playoffs. We know 2 years ago it was Portis in Milwaukee winning an NBA title. Last year it was Moses Moody in Golden State, and we're dangerously close to not having a Pro Hog beyond the first round. But Golden State's got that championship pedigree. Let's see what happens. Sacramento's had a heck of a season. It's been a great series, but Moses had those rotation minutes. The last game out, box score +5. They get beat by 19. He plays 16 minutes, 9 points. But he does a little bit of everything. He's getting more – I think he's a more sound defender now because he's understanding his maturation at 20 years old in year 2. But he's getting the trust of the coaching staff, which is huge. He's playing ahead of guys right now in the playoffs that were playing ahead of him in the regular season. So it's, here's a guy that's not pouted. He's made the most of it. He's always ready, and now he's taking it to the court. And so let's hope Moses Moody and Golden State prevail. If for nothing else, to see more of Moses Moody in his journey in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, hopefully Moody and the Golden State Warriors are able to muscle that one out. And we appreciate you calling in, as always, for our favorite segment. But we're going to head to break. More Pig Trail after this.